This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
Is he in studio? The handsome, the intelligent, the hardworking Frank Dumas?
I didn't know our sponsorship was that expensive.
You know, I'll blow smoke up anybody's ass, Frank. How are things, dude?
A lot of traffic's in Toronto. I don't know how you do it now. It's almost as worse as Montreal.
Yeah, it's terrible, man. And it's summer months. Like, you know, you're dealing with a lot of people like me who aren't even in the city right now. Toronto is brutal. We do the show in LA a bunch, and people complain about LA traffic. I feel like it's better than Toronto traffic at this point. So yeah, Toronto, big city, big problems. I don't know. I love the city. Less desirable for me, frankly, and that's a big part of it.
No, it's mostly construction though, so you don't, probably it's going to get better.
I hope. Do you hate when people say, quite frankly?
We don't say that much in French, so I hear it from time to time, but not as much as I should, probably.
Must be very flattering, though, yeah.
Well, I know myself, so now I don't think it's flattering.
At all. How is everything going with you and your team at the Zeu Crypto Networks? We had a great chat last week with Jean-Philippe Audet and talking about all the different advancements that you have in technology.
Well, he was supposed to be here alone. He was supposed to be here alone, and we're not on talking terms now, so that's why he's not here.
How dare you? How dare you steal some of his spotlight?
Well, yeah, I said, that's it. You want to be like this? I'm going to go alone. And actually, he's not here for good reason. We have to. We're still pushing in a few things, and he thought he could deliver something pretty quickly. He could deliver something by just. How can I say that without insulting you? He thought he had more important things to do, actually, and he could deliver a new patent probably sometime this week if I would just let him work. So, but the reality is, for the last few days since the last patent we filed, none of us are talking to each other. We all decide to work on our whole thing, and there's a little bit of a friendly competition, trying to see who's going to come with the next patent. In the meantime, we got a lot of things happening around us, and I don't know if you saw it in the news, if you follow blockchain news as much as I do, but there's a few interesting things that happened this week.
Let's hear it.
Well, you saw first that China is putting out their crypto renminbi, so their national currency will be digitalized, and they're going to do that in step. But they came out and they described the protocol that they're going to use. It's their own protocol. It looks, or it sounds oddly familiar to us. And we have a general idea what they're doing. But initially, the first plan we heard a few years ago was that they were supposed to have the crypto renminbi as a barter token, as something that they would be able to exchange between government ministry and state-owned enterprise or state-owned business, so they could track, they could track where the money was going and track corruption or reduce corruption. Now, what we see is that it will most probably be pushed down to the normal citizen, so that their currency end up being digitalized. So it's pretty much the end of putting renminbi in your mattress, but there's more to it, and that might be the part where they're traveling in the opposite direction that we're traveling with our projects. Is we're trying to give the power back to the people, to get people to own their data, their personal data, and if they're willing to do it, to monetize it with us. But it's something a lot more, a lot more dark that's happening in China right now, where they have another software that's a machine learning software or artificial intelligence software that they have deployed and that they're reinforcing, they're augmenting right now. That is the social credit platform, where they track what you do, who you talk to, if you talk against the government, if you drink the wrong beer, if you've talked to artists, talked to journalists, and you lose credit. And they track you with facial recognition. They look who's you're meeting. So even if it's not over the phone or the internet, the fact that you're meeting other people, they're tracking a lot of things and gathering a lot of data on their citizen. And now they're going to patch that with their crypto renminbi. And that's one of the elements that we were able to figure out this week, is that if you're not in the good grace of the government, or in the good grace of people in the government that you might be interacting with, or even if you don't, if it's your brother, your nephew, somebody you know that might have pissed off someone from the Chinese government, you're going to lose some, your score is going to come down on the social credit.
Like total Black Mirror episode. This is so wild to hear, Frank Dumas, all this kind of stuff.
That somebody mentioned that today, and I'm going to have to go and see that series. But for me, I'm a little bit older, so I'm thinking 1984. I'm talking Orwell, and that's Big
of course,
Brother.
Big Brother.
It's even Fahrenheit 451. That's Bradbury. Now I know a bunch of nerds will actually come at me because I mentioned Bradbury, but they think what I think of them. But the craziest thing is they'll be not only doing negative reinforcement, but they're going to do positive reinforcement. So, for example, Todd, since we're kind of friends, if I snitch on you to the government on that application, I might be rewarded. And there's a module there where they're going to allow people, knowingly or not, to actually snitch on their loved ones, the people close to them, and they're going to get a better payment, a better compensation out of it.
It's like a plea bargain, but in the digital world. Where you sell out the other gangsters, and you do less time. In this case, you might not have done anything wrong, but if you give some information to the government about people, you're going to all of a sudden be in the upper echelon of certain categories on a scoring system.
Well,
this is so dark, deep, and scary, dude.
It becomes a race. If you want to be able to put bread on the table, and feed your children, it becomes a race of who's going to be the purest in the eyes of the government. And if you're not having enough resource to live, one way out would be to give away the people who are closer to you, because they're worth more points on that system. Which brings me back to...
This reminds me of what they did in World War II when people would let people know where the Jews were living, and
definitely
the Nazis then put you in favor, and you gave up the Jews, and that did well for you. And of course, if you hid the Jews and they had suspicions of that, you were probably pretty screwed. This is really, really scary stuff.
The issue with that is that it's an innovation killer. So artists, journalists, scientists will have to come in line and follow the party line or follow the government line. That means that this country is going into recession. This country is going to, and it's going to happen very quickly. And they're dead set.
The country's going to, so that you think the country's going. You think that the country's going to S and that we're going into a recession, Frank?
Yeah, I think China is done because they're committed to do it. Is there a reason on the political side? Do they feel that there's reform pushing on them organically that they don't control? I don't know. But one thing that's clear is that what they're doing right now, what they're deploying, and they're putting the resource behind it, it's not going to make their economy better. So they're losing a lot of jobs. They're losing a lot of these manufacturing jobs that were simple jobs. And what could save them would be jobs in R&D, in research and development. That would be the innovation, stuff like that. But all these initiatives are innovation killer. Now that brings us to North America and to Facebook, who has a similar approach. It's crazy how similar it is to what they're about to do with what the Chinese are doing. So Facebook is coming with the Libra token. And Facebook is already monitoring what you're saying to your friends on Facebook proper, but it's also monitoring what you're saying in text in their Messenger application. And they're using it, they're monetizing it. But one thing we realized recently is that they also listen to your voice call. So if you're using Messenger, you call somebody over a voice over IP or over the internet, they will actually convert that back into text and feed it into their machine learning application.
Oh my God.
So suddenly Zuckerberg...
I got to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
Would that have anything to do with... Well, a few things, and we only get about 5 minutes here, Frank. I could talk about this all day long, dude. But on Instagram, when I get the ads, and that's owned by Facebook, it is like I just mention I swear to God, I mentioned that I wanted a cover for my couch because I wanted to change the color. And I swear to God, for the next 4 days, all I ever got, I never ever had this before, and I never Googled it once. I never looked for it. I just mentioned it, that I wanted my darker gray couch to be more white with the theme of my cottage. And I'm like, do they make covers? I said out loud to someone. And that's all the ads I got for it for the next 2-3 days. I swear to God, dude, it creeped me out. And then it went even past that, though. I wanted like a key hanging thing for keys, and I just talked about that briefly. Like, I need a key hanger. I think I even said it out loud to myself. I was getting key hanging ads. Is that what they're doing, man? Honestly?
We know that they're definitely monitoring the conversation. So if it's a bidirectional, multi-directional conversation on the application, they're doing it. We were able to figure that part out, and we're not the only one. I've read a lot of other people online that said, yeah, we know how they're doing it, and we have evidence that they're doing it. They've come themselves out saying, yeah, we're running machine learning and keywords search on personal data of people to provide, quote unquote, a better experience. But I can tell you that the technology is out there. It's easy to implement. It's easy to just listen to, especially if you have, any of these home enhancement application where you have the internet by voice and you're asking or you're just adding to your grocery list and things like that. So it sounds simple, but it's very powerful because this thing could listen 24/7 everything that happens in your house. Your phone could listen to you also. That's another thing. Like I'm not gonna start the conspiracy theory, but the technology is there. So for an entity that want to monetize your data, it's very easy to deploy something like that. And
unreal, Frank.
And they've said a few things. They said that they will monitor their network and they would choose who's worthy of using the Libra one. So somehow it might be just an imperialistic way of doing what the Chinese are doing. And that's why we're developing in Zeu. That's why we're developing application to give back to people the power over their data.
And that is the most important thing. In my world, it's about intellectual property. And, I'm very lucky where I have rights to my intellectual property, meaning after SiriusXM, which I love and I'm grateful for, I can still then utilize that after a live show. And that's what basically it is for everybody. You want to have your data. If you want to choose, if you want to monetize it, you click on a toggle, and that's what Zeu's working on. And I can't wait for the results to that. And I can't wait to find out when you're going public. Frank, just come back on the program next week, and let's do these weekly because I love these topics. We'll get into a bunch of different topics in technology and what people need to know, or at least hear, and not to freak people out. But I think this is a really, really intriguing stuff. Frank Dumas from the Zeu Crypto.
It looks like you're gonna have Jean-Philippe next week, like it's his turn.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, you guys just want to be friends.
Prepare to be mesmerized. Okay. Prepare to be mesmerized.
Well, listen. Good luck wherever you're heading next in Toronto with the traffic. I'm sorry I'm not there with you 2 weeks in a row. You're normally in Montreal, and I'm normally there, ironically. But we will have our face-to-face very soon.
So you don't know what you don't know what they did with the studio here.
No, yeah, I can only imagine. I got to run, Frank.
You might want to come. You might want to come by.
Okay, cheers. Frank Dumas, St. George's Eagle Mining, Zeu Crypto Networks.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.